Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. We are looking at the state of the economy, giving us a chance during this program to reflect on the year that's been. And my guests, and at this time, I kind of also want to figure out from them what they are projecting moving forward. What do they think 2021 will look like? What opportunities might be headed our way as a country, but also what further challenges might there be as well? And this is the time when you can call in, so we'll start displaying the number there. We can take one or two phone calls and just hear what Kenyans have to say about the state of the economy from wherever they operate from. And I'll also be reading your messages as well. But Phyllis, let me start with you on this one and get your thoughts on this. We have had projections around manufacturing to see its contribution rise to about 15%. I think we've been talking about this with you for the last couple of shows, last year, the previous year as well. Is that still achievable under the current conditions? Realistically, what should we be aiming for in terms of what manufacturing can contribute to GDP?
Realistically, under the current conditions, the main thing is to see how we recover as an economy. First of all, from a health perspective, and on that note, my condolences to the family of Mustafa Eid. You've just given us some sad news. But really, first of all, to see how we recover from a health perspective, because that is going to be critical if the economy will recover. So the focus of 15%, for now, I think we really just need to refocus on getting the health issues addressed and then seeing how we rebuild the economy and get back to normal operation as much as possible. So looking into the future, what we see is the opportunities amidst the challenges. So the ability for local manufacturing to continue to produce a lot of the goods that were being produced locally, but also to expand into new products. There's also the issue of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area that is supposed to come into force next year, how we leverage and take advantage of growing intra-Africa trade, look at the value chains within the region, and how we can really just grow the continent and the opportunities here because of the issue of job creation. The other thing would be to really see how we grow our SME sector, and that is something as the association that's very close to our heart. Because if you look at the reality and what was spoken about, a lot of the businesses in Kenya are small. A lot of businesses operate in the informal sector. How do we begin to integrate this part of the economy in a way that enables them to scale? If you look at countries that have developed or have grown their businesses, you see a vertical graduation within their SME sector. So if you're micro, you don't remain micro forever. You become micro, you become small, medium, and you grow to become a multinational. So countries like Korea and others, that's a model they have. But our level of vertical growth in Kenya is maybe about 0.25% compared to the over 5% in other economies. So we are really keen to see as an association, how do we enable that to happen? Because even for us, we want to see more businesses become formal. What are the challenges informal businesses are facing? How do we even help to upgrade informal apprenticeship so that as people are learning and doing things and skilling in the informal sector, how can that be recognized and scaled up? How can they become the informal SMEs? What are the barriers that are making businesses more informal? Because the reality is in our country, that's the big part of the economy. And as long as it continues that way, the ability to scale and grow is not there. How do we create those linkages with the big businesses? So that's the burden. And really looking at then government and saying, how does the fiscal space support this? How does the regulatory space support this ambition? And more so ensuring that we create and support businesses to grow. And I'll really re-emphasize the issue as we look into 2021. One of the big concerns we have is the issue of minimum tax that is going to be implemented from 1st of January, because we do understand that the government needs to raise revenue, but we also have expenditures that we need to look at and rethink as a government, because as long as we don't do that, Samuel will be here every day saying that businesses have manufacturing, tourism sector, because a big part of what we contribute as tax goes into expenditure. So we really need to relook at that. So the issue of minimum tax is something that we are saying that we need to either abolish completely or put on hold at the moment to allow the economy to recover, because it will have an impact on all the sectors represented here. It will have an impact on medium businesses, and eventually trickle down also to the small businesses. The consumer will also suffer, because at the end of the day, the burden of this cost is passed to the consumer. So as we look into 2021, we are keen to see how we can work to support businesses to recover, how we can minimize the pain, share the burden between the public and the private sector so that we allow businesses to get back on their feet.
Phyllis, briefly tell me this: Buy Kenya, Build Kenya. It's been fronted as one of the ways to ensure local industries remain afloat and grow post-COVID-19. Are we getting it right?
Buy Kenya, Build Kenya, and the local content and ensuring we are supporting products made locally is critical, because if you look back in the entire value chain, it supports a full value chain. If you buy products that are made locally, you would probably support the farmer, the transport sector, and everyone else within the chain, and many other sectors. So it is right. We have seen Government Gazette 371 products that should be purchased locally. We still, however, see certain critical products being imported, and we do raise the red flag as the Association of Manufacturers when we see this. So the policies are in place. What we want to see is that we walk the talk and we implement the policies that we have put in place, if we are going to really genuinely support the growth of local business. But we appreciate the 371 products that have been gazetted and the support. Like, there are certain sectors like the pharmaceutical sector that have been zeroed in for support to ensure that we are producing a lot of these products locally. So we continue to encourage that, and at the end of the day, what we don't want to do is to shift the cost to the consumer. So if we don't deal with competitiveness, the cost of production, and these fiscal and tax issues, what eventually happens is you will be supporting local at the expense of the consumer. So we don't want that. So what we want is, can we produce competitively locally? Can we bring down the cost of production so that even as you support locally, the consumer doesn't suffer by higher prices in the market?
I see. Harsi, come in as well and tell me this. There are those who say that one of the big impacts of COVID-19 is that for products or services that were at the tail end of their life cycle, it simply fast-tracked that already, think of a dry forest simply awaiting for the spark of a fire, to be set ablaze. What aspects of tourism do you think were due to be retired that COVID-19 simply fast-tracked? And is it time for tourism to think of new products, new offerings that have been in the pipeline, have been in discussions in boardrooms, but were simply not possible in terms of how to be implemented until now?
I think one of the key things is we've always discussed, and this has always come up many times, that the potential visitor from around the world is tired of the beach and safari. And that is a myth, that has been repeated over and over again. And you always say that if something is repeated over and over again and it's not challenged, then people tend to believe it. Mm-hmm. Now, beach and safari will not be retired. I would like to say that. And the reason is this. When you look at safari, for instance, we are only 7 countries in the world that have got authentic, proper safari globally. And that is next door neighbors, Tanzania, Zambia, Botswana, South Africa, Namibia. We're only 7 of us. And when you look around, 2019, we had 1.5 billion visitors, or rather travelers around the world, and only 4% visited Africa. And out of that 4%, which is around 71 billion, Kenya's share was hardly 1.2 million. We may say we had 2.2 million visitors in Kenya, but more than 1 million actually from Uganda, Tanzania, our next door neighbors, who happen to be mainly traders who are crossing the border. That's what they are. So in real sense, if you look at it, we only get 1 million out of the 1.5 billion travelers. So in essence, since independence, we've had not more than 55 million visitors coming to Kenya. So there are many people who love to come and see what we got here, and they've never had the chance to say it. So anybody saying, you need to retire beach and safari, that is not something that, it has no legs to stand on. However, on the other side, do we need new products? Certainly, yes. And Magical Kenya Tourism Board have come up with what we call Kenya Signature Experience. They are encouraging organizations, whether it's a hotel, whether it is a tour operator, to come up with a very unique, a USP that no one else can duplicate, let alone in their country or even outside Kenya. So we have had 15 of them that were launched early this year. They are in the pipeline of assessing another 15 more, and then fresh applications have been received for another 15 more. So that's one of the ways that Kenya is going to separate itself from the crowd. Now, on the other side...
Let me interrupt you, Harsi, just for a second. Hang on to that point. Don't forget it. Let me allow Omari from Nyamira to pose his question or comment. Omari, go ahead. Good morning.
Yeah. I want to speak to the CS.
You want to speak to?
Yeah, first I want to thank you for the topic of the day. Now,
Would you have a question? You have a question or a comment?
the question,
Yes.
we are talking about the impact on the economy on tourism.
Uh-huh.
So I wanted to say now, concerning this tourism sector,
Yes, endelea tafadhali. Go ahead.
so the question is, how can we make this tourism economy go higher? Yet in some places like here, in my home place here at Nyamira, we have some places there where I have never seen any person coming to see, yet we have the good historical sites here.
I see.
Yeah, now I'm just requesting if you can access the CS tourism, Barara,
Okay.
to come the routes, not there in the bigger towns, there like the ones in Narok and other places there. There are other places like in Nyamira here, where we have some good historical sites, but people have not realized to come and visit there.
I see.
What if they make good of these resources here? People come from those bigger towns and come do these reserves here, like the ones we have here near me is Manga Hills. They come and see the ongoing, and I think by that process they will improve the economy.
Okay, thank you so much. I think you've posed a very important question, Omari. Thank you for, really thank you for that. And I think you've asked it at the right time because Hersey is still on the line. Hersey, I think Omari is saying we're tired of everybody going to the usual sites and the usual spots. And he's a Nyamira resident saying, listen, we have amazing sites here, historical sites here, but the tourists aren't coming and nobody talks about those sites. Talk to me about that as you talk about new products and new offerings, Hersey.
Thank you, Higa. I totally agree with Omari from Nyamira that Kenya has a lot more to offer. And one of the key things that have happened in this country is the infrastructure development. Today, you can move around this country very easily compared to probably, 10, 15 years ago. And I can speak for Western Kenya and Nyanza region. I've been able to visit those places, driving from Kisumu all the way to places that I've never imagined I would be going, and finding myself in places like Mbita, excellent tarmac road, Kendu Bay, you cross over to Mfangano Island. Those are places that you could not easily access in the past. The same thing will apply to, to Nyamira. You look at the northern part of the country today, Kenyans have just discovered a place called Chalbi Desert, which happens to be in my home area, which is in Marsabit County. People are finding themselves going all the way to Lake Turkana. Why? Because the roads have been fixed. And once you fix roads and infrastructure, security sorts itself out. So security is not sorted out by bringing more policemen and more security along the road. It is sorted out by enabling, the economy. So new product is key, and this is one of the things that Kenya Tourism Board, in conjunction with private sector, with all the signature experience that we're doing, to come up with things that are unique. Then we also have devolution, and every county has a CEC for tourism. In fact, a whole docket with a full budget. Mm-hmm. So my appeal is to the county governments. They need to also drive tourism in their own counties. For instance, Kenya Coast now, we've just relaunched, or rather launched, logos and complete branding for the entire 6 counties. Diani in Kwale has got its own branding, setup. Mombasa. Then you've got Kilifi, which has got 2, not 1. You've got Malindi, and you've got Watamu. And then you have Lamu, and then we have got Savo for Taita Taveta. And for the first time ever, we've added Tana River. Tana River as a destination on its own. When you go to Tana Delta, that is, if, for instance, South Africa owned Tana Delta today, they will be shouting at the top of whatever, So Tana River was forgotten. Good road network as well, all the way Garsen, all the way to Hola, connecting to Garissa. And now that we also have the new road from Garsen going to Lamu, and hopefully security issue of terror is sorted out, then that means that place is open for business. So Are we looking at new products? Certainly, yes.
Okay, thank you for that. And really, you've posed a challenge to county governments out there and those in the tourism docket. Use those budgets to really get people to visit your sites at a time when domestic tourism really is the focus, at least for now. We'll talk about when international tourism could come back, just in a couple of minutes. But Samuel Karanja, let me bring you in. And in a strange way, you and Phyllis Wakiaga sit on different sides of the spectrum? Because some would say the success of the Kenya Importers Association could be to the detriment of the Kenya Association of Manufacturing. Talk to me about that, because many say that this year was the year when we would reduce imports as we find ways to genuinely produce products here. Why are we importing toothpicks? Why are we importing very small goods that could easily be made here? Talk to me about that contradiction from the place where you sit, Samuel Karanja.
Thank you, Higa. I think we had a conversation here another day, and we said you cannot kill one sector to build another sector. And it has to have a progressive process whereby you are making Karanja not to import toothpicks, but also facilitating him to be able to have, that small plant in his backyard or even in his balcony. And the problem that we have is that the Kenyan policies which are there, we are killing the importation sector, or we are bringing some unrealistic policies to kill them or to discourage people from importation, and yet we have not put our house in order. So first and foremost, can we be able to have our house in order whereby the cost of production is really enhanced? So if, for example, I shouldn't import toothpicks, and I think there are about 300 plus items which were gazetted. Realistically, do we have capacity to, for the appetite of the market? Do we have capacity to build that? And I remember we had even issues with the mitumba industry. We have the textile industry in Kenya. Are they able to meet the market? What is the cost of production here? Can people be able to afford the clothes which are manufactured here in Kenya vis-a-vis, the mitumba, which are imported? And you find that a very big spectrum of people, or they are in that category whereby they can't be able to afford such. So you find that the people who are dependent, especially the economy statistics, the people who can be able to afford the mitumba, about 4 or 5 million people, compared to about maybe 500,000 or 2 million people who can be able to buy a shirt for 2,000, 2,500. So Wahiga, the contradiction is usually there, and we have had many meetings, even with Phyllis and other people. And what we are saying is this: we really want to build this economy, but can you make the policies conducive? Can you be able to make us, that incentive of making sure that, for example, I don't need to import, I don't need electronics. And let me give an example very, very shortly.
Hang on, Samuel, I'll give you a chance to give that example. Let me also bring in the voice of Daniel from Nairobi. He's calling in. Daniel, what's your question or comment? Daniel, yes. Good morning. What's your question or comment?
Yes, my question was that there's this gentleman who is... can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. Go ahead.
Yes. So there's this gentleman who is a lecturer. He posed a very fundamental question.
Yes.
Okay, so... But it looks like there's this lady who just brushed it aside, because he posed a question that there's these unlawful car wash people that have been sent home packing and they're earning a living from their business. How does the government, is the government a county government or a national government who is responsible in making sure that these people are not just brushed aside like that? Who is responsible? Okay, another question is, the mitumba people, if we empower the local manufacturing, are we going to see the kind of industry, the jostling, people are buying clothes here and there and trading them from this country to this country? Are you going to see that kind of scenario? Or are we trying to create rain where there's no clouds? What is the structures? How are we empowering our social economic structures in the business sector? Because if this gentleman posed a question and there's no answer to it, then how are we benefiting from this discussion? Because this gentleman posed a very fundamental question.
Yes.
About the car wash.
Okay.
It's a small question, but it's a very fundamental question.
Okay. And I don't, Daniel, thanks for that comment. I don't think anyone brushed off If they did, I might have missed that. But you've raised a fundamental point, and I'll give both Dr. McPhee and anyone else a chance to respond to what you've said, because it really is affecting many Kenyans trying to do business the way they can, and they are running up against some of the regulations of the national county government. Let me give you, Bwana Karanja, a chance to finish your comment. You are even giving us an example.
Yes.
You can give us your example and respond to Daniel if you want to as well.
Thank you. Let me give an example. We have a trader who is manufacturing bulbs here in Kenya. And he started with a very small plant. And I think he started during this COVID time because he saw that he cannot be able to be importing bulbs and the stringent measures and everything else. And so he was able to bring in a machine. Now, the cost of power was extreme, something that he cannot be able to afford. When it comes also to taxation, we have some policies on taxation, especially for manufacturers, and I'm talking about that specific case, that he even closed down. Now look at that, Wehiga. This is a person who has brought a small plant, who is trying to bring in a product he branded, made in Kenya, by Kenya, made in Kenya, but the government is not facilitating. So when you look at the double standards that the government is having, we must be very candid on our policy implementation. Let's make sure, the moment you are saying that you are facilitating Karanja, you are facilitating Ouma, you are facilitating Omari to come and have a plant in Kenya for local manufacturing of cottage industry, let's make sure that those policies are implemented to the letter. Now, let me respond to the caller. He has talked about a very fundamental thing. When you look at the government, the county government is losing a lot of revenue because of lack of innovation and invention. Look at the car wash business, and I think Dr. has said that in the studio. It is a platform whereby a good majority of the young people can be able to plug in, because you don't need to go to the university or to any college, to be able to wash a car. And it can be able to absorb a lot of, employment. But you find that the government, the county governments are not able to come up with policies which can be able to govern that and also harness revenue from such people. Because, for example, if, let's say it's a road reserve, that road reserve, they can have, a semi-permanent or whatever they are going to come up with, or an agreement whereby you can be able to lease this for 2 years. And should we need to use this facility or place, you're going to get it back from you. In those 2 years, you have given a person a lifeline. And I think we should be able to indigenize, platforms and services whereby you can be able to absorb people in terms of employment, so that now we can have so many people who are employed, who are self-employed, and move from that perspective of you have to be employed by the government to be able to make it in life. And I think that's very important.
Okay, thank you for that. In the interest of time, we are going to have to wrap up this discussion. Let me allow each of my panelists to give their final thoughts on this, maybe respond to any questions or feedback. Let me see what you are saying, either via 22422. Someone asking a question here. I'm not sure how correct it is, but let me nevertheless ask it. Why are most importers using Tanzania port through Namanga back to Kenya? I don't know whether Phyllis or Samuel, you might have any thoughts on that. And on on our Twitter line, the hashtag news Daybreak, I beg your pardon. Let me read one here that I thought was interesting. Jenga Kungu Paul says, tourism industry should as well decentralize itself to county level for it to stabilize its relevance. The tourist attractive sites are at county levels, and therefore they should partner with county governments to make tourism attractive in terms of areas that are appreciated by locals as well. Jenga also wants Dr. Mafi to talk about, should government brainstorm on how much it helps the smallest mamamboga by creating a conducive environment for them to create more jobs. Our policies should be formulated to ensure that cottage industries are prioritized to establish our economy. Dr. McPhee, let me get your final thoughts on this. I don't know if you want to respond to any of the questions.
Well, the thing of Namanga is a thing which I feel is incredibly important. When Brown Ondega was the head of the KPA, the fact is that people in Uganda were unhappy with the operation of the Port of Mombasa. In fact, Durban in South Africa were saying to people in Uganda, we will deliver a container to you in 14 days. In Kenya, what would happen is they would pull out, is this really TVs? they pull out a TV, they couldn't get it back in because of...
Let me understand the Durban example. So goods land at the port of Durban, and then how do they get to Uganda?
Through, there's a railway system, okay, through Zambia, etc., through Tanzania,
In
up
14
to Uganda.
days.
In 14 days. We could not match them because when the port of Mombasa is not working as it should. And the problem here, okay, is that, you see, us individuals, we say, but ninataka pesa, ninataka, you know, we've got to understand Kenya works if I make it work, not if we have policies and blah, 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 blah. And a friend of mine was talking to me about workshops on Monday. He said, these are not workshops, these are talk shops. We just talk.
I hope we're not having one right now.
Well, you see, we've got to change things, you know, unless we change, we live in a competitive world. There's a YouTube that you can watch about Tanzania, about their SGR, about their electrification. They are going to be ahead of us because we are here saying, sisi ya Kenya, Eliud Kipchoge ni mimi tu. Eliud Kipchoge is the fastest man in the marathon ever. But if I can't even run a marathon. A lot of Kenyans would not even run a marathon. But they say, you know, we are the champions. Sisi hapa. No, we are in a competitive world. Why is it?
And our neighbors are not asleep.
And they're not asleep. And I tell you, Tanzania is going to overtake Kenya. If you go to Wakulima Market, what type of oranges do you buy from Tanzania? I have a past student, Isaac Njuguna, okay, he buys all of his raw material, he produces eggs, he gets all of his raw materials from Uganda. The only thing he buys from Kenya is lime from whatever you call it, this place. So the fact is, we are not competitive. We have, as the chairman of the Nairobi Securities Exchange says, look, you know, we have an expensive form of government. When his vehicle goes from Nairobi to, let's say, one of his commercial vehicles to his farm in Kitale, okay, I'm talking about Kiprono Kitonyi, you have to pay cess here, the police here. We are uncompetitive. And unless we understand this, we are going to go down in the world because we live in a world where there is incredible competition. Mm-hmm. Kipchoge, did he win his last race? The answer is no.
There was competition.
There is, and you know, I used to do a lot of swimming when I was young here in Kenya at St. Mary's. And there was a guy from Lenana. I knew, look, if I did not train properly, that guy from Lenana would beat me. So we've got to understand this. This has got to be our life. And, you know, the point here really is instead of worrying about some of our politics, which is sickening.
Let's not even get into that right now.
But, you know, the point is what we've got to do is to think, how do I make Kenya work better?
Tell me this in a minute.
How does government spend less of our money?
How do we support the Mama Mboga? Somebody asked that question.
Well, number one, we pass laws, okay, which make it easy for her to actually trade. We don't make it illegal for her to be on the side of the road. We've got to think about kiosks that, you know, that are operated. We have to be in touch with those people, get their ideas, not get the ideas of this man who's got his first-class degree in the London School of Economics, is a lecturer in economics at some fabulous university, but who knows nothing about the reality on the ground in Kenya. We've got to get people, we've got to know the one inch, what do they want to do? Mm-hmm. And we don't do enough of that. We have a new set of rules for tea, which are going to destroy the tea industry in Kenya. Thank God the Senate actually said, no, we're not going to have these rules. But it's all politicking.
Okay.
You know, we've got to get down to the level of the one inch to support them. But also the one inch you've got to understand, I've got to be an honest person. I can't be dishonest because this is one of our biggest problems in Kenya, dishonesty. But you know, let me tell you some good news. We used to be a very small tea producer in Kenya. We're now the third largest tea producer in the world. China's number one, India number two. China's about 1,300,000 tons. India's about 1,100,000 tons. We are about, well, we produce almost 400,000 tons of tea every year. We're the third largest producer. Our earnings for the first 8 months of 2019 was 74 billion. For the first 8 months of this year, that number has gone up to 89 billion.
Okay.
Good news. Number two, we are going into avocados in a big way. Martin O'Cheng, the managing director of Sassini, was in Barcelona or in Spain last year, okay, because there's a big avocado fair there. He was one of the few Kenyans who was actually there. And we have a very bad reputation in the avocado market because we start exporting before they're ripe, etc., etc. But we're now the 8th largest producer of avocados in the world.
Okay, okay.
This year, to October, the 12 months to October this year, we actually exported 68,000 tons of avocado, earning us 14 billion shillings, as opposed to the previous year where we exported 59,000, earning 10 billion shillings.
I wish I'd given you more time to give us this data earlier.
In fact, we have to become the #1 producer of avocados in Africa, like Kipchoge.
I like that. You've left us with at least a smile on our faces. Phyllis, how do you want to wrap this up for us? Let me give you a chance to give your final thoughts.
Thanks for everyone and everyone's comments. Just to echo what Dr. McPhee has said, we live in a competitive world. So as a country, we must ensure that every policy we are putting in place is a policy that takes into light the bigger picture and the fact that it's possible to knock our businesses out of this competition if we are not careful about how we do it. So I really support Samuel, and as you noticed, we are speaking from the same end, that we want to see the cost of production come down, because that way you can stimulate more people to produce locally. And one of the things I really want to urge government as we go into the new year and we look at our budget is to ensure that we don't really collect income and taxes at the expense of the long-term benefits for the economy. So let's not kill the goose that lays the golden egg. Let's see how we can nurture it and how we can grow our economy together so that in the long run we create jobs and really expand the opportunities in this country. So yeah, as we move into 2021, we need to reconsider the issue of minimum tax and the different policies, the regulations coming down even at county level. We've looked at what is coming up in Nairobi County and other counties. Let's relook at all this and see how we can create a supportive environment that enables businesses to grow and thrive. And that way we can recover our economy much faster. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Phyllis, giving us an optimistic outlook as we look into the new year. Hersi, your final word on this, international tourism, when might we see some return of that? And also, I know the country had lost a lot of tourists to markets like Tanzania, Zanzibar, etc. With the challenges the sector faced a couple of years back. What are your forecasts? What's your forecast or projections in the next year or so?
Thank you, Wahiga. I think the way I'll term COVID is that it has put the whole world on reset. So whatever advantage you had before is gone. You are all on ground zero and you begin from there. That's how I look at it. So what is the forecast looking like? It's not looking great, I must say. However, domestic and regional is what is going to sustain us for now. On international tourism, there are things that we need to do as a country. But the unfortunate part is that policymakers, and I'm talking here about departments and ministries that are supposed to be doing the right things like what other countries are doing so that we're able to tap into the international market. A key one for us is testing for COVID. We are not suggesting that we open our doors to everyone to come in as they wish without you monitoring their health status. But you'll notice that COVID, when it came in March, we didn't know much about the virus. But today, we know a lot about it. And transmission is also at community level. 99% of the transmission is within us. So trying to stop a traveler coming in who has no symptom, who has no signs, I think we are blocking ourselves, or rather blocking ourselves from that international traveler who needs to come here. Europe, people are trying to run away from winter. North America, people are trying to run away from winter, but we are not making it easy for them. The PCR testing that requires 96 hours is something we need to get rid of. We need to extend it probably to 7 days or even 14 days. If possible, even get rid of it altogether so that you come in and you have all the contact tracing done and your temperatures, and you have no telltale signs that you've got COVID, let me tell you, somebody who is unwell, somebody who is sick, will not be packing their bags to travel to Kenya on holiday. That will not happen. So we are denying ourselves, because looking at Mexico, looking at Costa Rica, looking at Egypt, looking at Turkey, even the Maldives Islands, all these guys have reopened. And one thing, Wahiga, Maldives Islands are doing better tourism in 2020 than 2019. And then finally, cost of electricity is the elephant in the room. Kenya is #3 most expensive in Africa. And no wonder, and I've said this many times, that the biggest threat to Big Four, His Excellency's agenda, especially on manufacturing, is electricity. And today, that's the biggest elephant we have in the room. And I hope the new team at KPLC will sort this out. And finally, there's one more thing, local manufacturing. Phyllis and I sit on the Kenya COVID Fund, which is the private sector trying to raise funds to buy kits for the medics and all that. We have insisted 80% of everything that we bought is produced locally. If you give the local manufacturer an opportunity, sky is the limit, let me tell you. Okay. There's a young man who has got in touch with me, and he says they came up, they're 2 science graduate students from JKUR. They have come up with a prototype, a ventilator, that is costing 28,000 shillings, which has been tested by doctors at Aga Khan, Kenyatta National Hospital. Eventually, when they were told, go to Kenya Bureau of Standards, KBS told them, young men, poleni sana, we don't know how we don't have systems to test this particular kit. You tell me, how low can you go? You tell me you need any other hurdle. When we've got a lot of young, budding, intelligent, forget about car wash. Let's not reduce our people to just informal sector. We've got a lot of bright young men and women in this country who need to be enabled. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohammed, for that, and some interesting points you've raised there at the end. I mean, we could spin off a different discussion just based on what you said there at the end, but time is up for now. Bwana Karanja, in a minute or so, what are your concluding remarks?
Just a point of emphasis what Phyllis and the rest of the panelists are saying, that we live in a very competitive world, and what Tanzania is doing differently, and Rwanda and Uganda, is that they are allowing people through their port, and especially who are investors. And Wahiga, I don't know whether that's legal or illegal, but there are things which are being repackaged in Tanzania, and they come in as made in Tanzania. And you know, once they do that, there are some tax incentives that they are going to enjoy because of the East African Community Trade Agreement. And I think we should think out of the box on how you can be able to sustain our businesses and have very introspective way of having a candid, a candid discussion with even the business players and the stakeholders, so that we can be able to come up with policies which are going to facilitate our businesses. And coming 2021, I believe Kenya is a very resilient country in terms even of businesses, and we can be able to pull through. What we need to do is to have leaders who have, who have the fear of God, and they have that leadership grace at heart. Thank you.
Thank you, Bwana Karanja. You've raised something that's made me very curious, and hopefully it's something we'll definitely look at even from a news perspective, if what you've said is what is happening. To each of my panelists, thank you so much for waking up bright and early to be part of this discussion. We've had Mohamed Hersi, Chair of the Kenya Tourism Federation, Phyllis Wakiaga, CEO, Kenya Association of Manufacturing. We've had Samuel Karanja, the Chair of the Kenya Importers Association. And here in studio has been Dr. Jim McPhee, lecturer at Strathmore University. And thank you to everyone who's weighed in via 22422 using the hashtag Daybreak as well. These are conversations we will continue having both on Daybreak, and also, of course, don't forget every Monday at lunchtime, Yvonne Okwara Matole also has a similar discussion on the state of the economy. These are important discussions to be having, especially in a year like this. Well, we take a quick break now here on Daybreak. When we come back, Workout Wednesday it is. Get fit, even as you continue watching our programming. That coming up shortly on the other side.